Hello, I'm Ron Reed, founder and executive producer for South by Southwest EDU. Thanks so much for joining us for South by EDU Online. Today's talk focuses on the Rather Prize and innovative approaches to improve public education. The Rather Prize awards $10,000 to a Texas student or educator who presents the best idea to improve education. We've enjoyed supporting Dan and his family and the Rather Prize over the past several years at South by Southwest EDU. And it's a real treat to have this opportunity to highlight their work this year. Without any further ado, please let me introduce Dr. Kevin Foster, who will help facilitate today's conversation. Kevin is an associate professor at the University of Texas at Austin, and he's also executive producer of Blackademics, an Emmy-nominated television series on PBS that highlights Black Studies scholars, students, community leaders, and activists sharing research and projects of impact. So excited for today's session. Thank you all for being here. Dr. Foster, please take it away, sir.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron. It is so exciting to be here this afternoon. This is the culmination of many, many months of work, and in fact, years of work. The Rather Prize was the brainchild of Martin Rather, Dan Rather's grandson, when he was an undergraduate at Rice University. Now the Rather Prize has moved to the University of Texas. So my team administered the prize and handled the evaluations, selection process. The Rather family was not involved in the selection of this year's winner. This afternoon we'll have a pretty intellectually stimulating, I think exciting afternoon where we'll get to announce the winner, and then we'll come back to a panel to have a conversation, and then we'll even have the opportunity for audience interaction and audience questions, as Ron was saying. So with that, let me pass this on to Mr. Rather.
Thank you very much, Dr. Foster. First of all, let me say that this won't take long, because we do want to talk about the Rather Prize and what the goal of the prize is. And yes, we may even be able to get into why we think it's especially relevant with what the country is going through at the moment. But let me begin by saying thank you. That Ron Reed and everybody at South by Southwest EDU has been from the very beginning so supportive of the Rather Prize. A great big thank you to them. To you, Dr. Foster, you have a lot of more important things to do than to sit around on something such as this. And we're really indebted to you and the University of Texas for taking this on. And I know Thea Ulrich-Lewis, who will be with us, Ulrich-Lewis it is, who will come be with us later on. Thank you as well. And also the Raise Your Hand Texas and the Butt family and the HEB support for public education. They've been very supportive of us as well. So it's kind of a long list, but I'd be derelict if I didn't say thank you to everybody involved. The Rather Prize came about, 4 years ago, when Martin Rather, who's the oldest of my two grandsons, had just, he was finishing his freshman year at Rice. His grandmother, my wife of 63 years, Fighting Heart Teenage Grace Global Rather, was always big on trying to teach the boys, we're privileged. You need to give back. You're privileged by being an American. You're privileged in a lot of different ways. And so Martin was at or about his 18th birthday, and so his grandmother sort of put it to him, what are you going to do? Start giving back. And Martin surprised us, I would say, by coming up with this idea of, he knows how much I value the public education I received in Texas. I never went to anything other than a public school. Elementary, middle school, what we call junior high school, right under Sam Houston State Teachers College, all state institutions. So I'm a product of Texas public schools. I'm very proud of that. Also, I know that there's no way that I can live the life that I've lived without the education I received from that. But Martin's idea was, I know how much Granddad cares about public education. The same was true of his grandmother, who, by the way, started in a one-room schoolhouse in Texas. He's the only person I know that actually went to school her first few grades in a one-room schoolhouse. So Martin came up with the idea, why don't we sponsor a prize for how to improve Texas education, Texas schools? We jumped on the idea. Martin threw himself into making it happen with the good help of at Rice University. And what we hope to accomplish with this is that we have no illusions. We're not the biggest prize around. It's limited what we can do. In a way, we operate on the periphery, if you will. But anything and everything we do to get people thinking about, well, how do we improve our schools? And particularly bottom-up thinking. But one of the goals of the Rather Prize has been good thinking from the bottom up. So often as people way up the chain, if you will, whether they be government people or professional educators, there's kind of top-down suggestions of how to improve schools. What we were interested in doing, and we emphasized from the start, was, and this is the purpose of the prize, is to get ideas from the bottom up, from students, from teachers, from administrators, from people who are actually in schools, to start suggesting how schools can be improved. And here we are some years later. This has been a challenging year to put the prize on, and it could not have happened without you, Dr. Foster, and our friends at HEB and Raise Your Hand in Texas. We've had a lot of help because, as with so many things with the pandemic on, it has not been like as usual. But here we are. I'm so pleased that we have a winner. I'm eager for people to hear about the winner, and for that, here is my oldest grandson, Martin Rather. Martin, howdy.
Hi, Granddad. Howdy. And thank you. And thank you to everybody who helped make the prize this year. I would say it's the most successful one yet. It seems to just get better every year. And I'm confident everybody hears the idea that won this year. You'll feel the same way. So let's get to it. Without further ado, the 2020 winner of the Rather Prize is Armin Salek from Aikens High, Austin ISD. Let's roll the video.
Innovative, transformative, and academically sound. The winner of the 2020 Rather Prize for the best idea to improve education in Texas, Aikens High School of Austin. At Aikens High, students choose their path of education from 5 academies, in addition to their basic required courses for graduation. Those academies include business, engineering, technology, the sciences. And there's one more, a law program.
A child walks into your law firm and you're representing the mother.
Armin Salek is an attorney and teacher at Aikens. Salek created a pathway to law for his students, and under his guidance, Aikens is home to the first high school legal aid clinic in the country. Salek's law interns provide free legal services to Aikens staff, students, and low-income families in South Austin. Meet the legal eagles of Eagle Aid.
My Rather Prize idea is to expand the provision of free legal services on high school campuses. And I want to do that by allowing high school students to work on legal cases. They're ready, they're emotionally intelligent, they're intellectually capable, and they will give clients the services that they deserve. And the benefit of that is twofold. Both we're providing free legal services to the community, and the students are advancing well beyond their years in terms of legal education. They're accomplishing things that most people don't do until their second or third years in law school. All of a sudden, these schools that are sometimes seen as underperforming are excelling. Instead of being schools that are rated as below average, they're rated as exemplary.
Aikens High is a predominantly low-income campus. 90% of the students are minorities. With Eagle Aid, Salek and Aikens have created an innovative solution that empowers students to address the symptoms of poverty, focuses their strengths as a diverse student body, and serves their community.
We have communities that are full of legal needs, and those legal needs are getting in the way of learning. When you are concerned about immigration matters and family matters, you're not focused on education. You're focused on the immediate needs. What's going to happen to my family? How is my family going to function? How are we going to get the necessities that we need? What you should be worrying about as a high school student is academics. We want to make sure that we help shift the focus to that, and we create a culture of community in South Austin.
Students talk about becoming lawyers and helping people in ways they never thought they could before. They have purpose. They have a need to fulfill now. Like Armen has grown social justice in this school. Our students are armed with truth and knowledge and want to just do what's right for everyone.
Many of the students here want to pursue law degrees in college. This high school law program is giving them a huge jump start.
My dad's a police officer, so I grew up around law enforcement. So I thought that's what I wanted to be, but coming into Aikens and having this law program, it's really changed my ways of how I view things, and it made me want to become a lawyer.
We have a clinic where we do wills, and we have a cancer law clinic where we have done wills for cancer patients, and those are completely free. And in this class, it's like a really good opportunity to be in it because you go in depth and you learn.
We're providing legal advice and aid to help them through whatever they need to make sure that they get through that as quick as possible so that they can return to their life.
So sometimes people are concerned that high school students don't have the ability to handle legal cases, but I've seen otherwise. If you want somebody to help you out with your immigration case, have a student that has family members dealing with immigration. If you want to deal with a family law case, have a high school student that has dealt with family law issues. They demonstrate empathy because they've been in those places before. By going through that themselves, they learn how to treat others who are in that situation. So I think a lot of times these high school students are better prepared to handle clients than even some attorneys.
University of Texas professor Kevin Foster led the judging panel for the Rather Prize.
We had applications come in from across the state, lots of great applications. And at the end of the day, we were looking for, remember, the Rather Prize is about transformation in education in Texas. So we wanted something that was innovative. It's not something that's being done in many other places. We wanted something that had the potential for transformative impact. This could really sort of change the game. And then right along with that, we wanted something that was academically sound, that had like a rigorous plan to it and a theory of action, and we could actually associate learning outcomes to it. This application met all of those.
First, you will hear from victim Kieran Spokes. She was blindsided by Torrance Rush's vehicle. Next, you will hear from witness Satoshi Umbreon. He will tell you that Kieran planted her feet firmly on the ground and...
Not only do they learn and practice law, the students have even tried cases. To prepare, Aikens has a dedicated courtroom. The Legal Eagles claim the title of mock trial champions, having swept regional competition.
Lastly, Sawyer Steele, a key eyewitness that had a direct line of sight into the intersection and saw Kieran Spokes on her bike speeding into the intersection.
On this particular day, they're practicing and presenting their case before a real-life judge who happens to be Texas Supreme Court Justice Jeffrey Boyd.
You're the only high school student-staffed legal aid clinic in the country. That's what caught my attention. I was like, are you kidding? These are high school students learning the law and then sitting down with community members and helping them. And I thought, that's a program worth supporting. So good for you. You're doing great stuff.
With the Rather Prize, Salek and Aikens High School plan to expand their program and legal services to even more people.
We hope that Aikens High School serves as a prototype for campuses around Texas and hopefully grow it from there. The things that these students are accomplishing should be replicated because they are amazing with our clients. Their legal research skills are superb, and I think any client would be happy to have the services that they provide.
High school students do have the capability to learn and interpret law. It is a very good area of practice that I think could be spread to other schools, and I think that we can set an example ourselves, and it can serve as a jump start to get this thing rolling across Texas.
I'm excited for the students. I'm excited for Armen, who is a kind of architect, and I'm excited for the state because the idea is to take this great idea and provide it with the supports and study it and learn about it and write it up so that it can be applied elsewhere. So I'm kind of excited across the board.
So we have a really tough ethical question there, right? You can do some outside research or you can just use what you think is right.
I refer to us as the gem of the South. People don't know. They just don't have any idea of what we bring to our students. And then winning the Rather Prize will bring, it will bring the acknowledgement of what is happening here, what Armen is doing with our students, what our students are doing and what they're learning and what they're providing to our community. Opportunity, sir. Those are things that not all my students have.
For our community.
For our family. For ourselves.
All right. Good stuff, guys. All right.
Congratulations, Armin Salek and Aikens High School, the 2020 winner of the Rather Prize.
So Armen, congratulations. Now we've had a chance to learn a little bit more about your work, and I'm sure the audience can immediately see why you won this prize. As we start off our conversation this afternoon, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the students and where they are and how they're doing now. And I'd also love to hear about, and I think the audience would love to hear about, possibilities for the program in this kind of new context and new day, which includes both this pandemic and quarantine and new styles of learning, and also a new awareness of institutional racism and challenges that we face as a society.
Sure. So my students are doing well as they could be right now. You know, I definitely feel for them. They missed out on prom. They missed out on graduation in person. And this has definitely been a different experience than most seniors have when they're about to graduate. And even from my younger students, you know, most of us would prefer to be there in person, be able to speak about the things that are going on around us. But I've also seen that our students are highly active and they've been prepared to think critically about these issues. And I think it's a perfect time to give students the power to kind of address these issues directly. You know, we have students that can reach out to family and community and they understand these issues. We've discussed them. We've talked about, you know, race issues. We've talked about domestic violence. We've talked about a lot of issues related to pandemics. I remember before I said goodbye to my court systems class last period, I said, guys, remember in 2016, we heard a lot of negative talk about migrants and minorities. And speaking to a community that is predominantly minority, I said, you know, be careful. Because now when we have this pandemic and things aren't looking good, you're going to see a lot of that language come back, especially during the election cycle. So we've had those tough discussions, but you know, what this has highlighted is that there are equity opportunities that we can give students like those at Aikens, like those at Eastside, like those in Navarro, a chance to kind of cure the inequities by giving them opportunities at a high school level. I'll speak directly to the legal education issue. And we do a lot of work to create diversity once people are in law school. That work should be done at the high school level. If we can give students support like the Legal Eagles, we can create diversity for these students who are incredibly capable. And then we won't have to, you know, make those changes once they're already in higher education. So I think it's an opportunity for our students to use the critical thinking skills that they have and for us to create equity through programs like legal education.
Nice. So when I heard you mention Navarro, Aikens, you mentioned a number of schools that are near and dear to my heart because they're here in Austin, but the Rather Prize is, of course, a statewide prize. And so I'd like to, I guess, go to Thea for a minute, who's with Raise Your Hands Texas and has a statewide experience in terms of working with our public schools. When you saw Armin's work and when you saw the Legal Eagle program, does it have did anything come to mind for you in terms of statewide implications?
Yeah, thanks so much for that question. And Armen, on behalf of Raise Your Hand Texas, congratulations. Really a wonderful and inspirational program. When we think about statewide kind of applications, I think one thing we've seen throughout all of the situations we're facing now is that a good teacher helps their students dream big, but a really great teacher goes out and builds a world where those big dreams can actually exist. And a really, really great teacher like Armen teaches his students to go out and build that world for them. And I've really been reminded of the idea that those closest to the problem are often the ones who are closest to the solution. And so I think when we're thinking statewide, remembering that teachers know what needs to get done, asking teachers how they can be helped, both, you know, as private citizens, and then as we think about kind of our decision-making bodies, going first to teachers to ask them what needs to get done is really key. And then I think also to Armin's point about kind of diversifying the field of law, that's also something we need to work on in teaching. Teachers are so important. There's a lot of research that shows that for minority students, having a teacher who looks like them makes a huge difference in their academic success. And even for white students, having a diversity of teachers really helps them with their critical thinking and learning from other people, which we know is so key. And I think the last thing I'll say is that this program is a really amazing reminder. I think that we all need sometimes that school looks very different from when we were in the classroom. You go into a school now and kids are sitting all over the place. They're comfortable, they're relaxed, they're in a courtroom. Just that school is different now. And so as we think about what teachers need to be, they need to be a little different and more agile than we perhaps think about traditionally.
Nice. So, Mr. Rather, and it's, I guess, important to contextualize your contributions to the nation and to knowledge and to information being disseminated to masses of folks. So you come to the Rather Prize, and as you bring so much to the table, I wind back to an initial question of, you love your grandson, Martin's a great guy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every idea that your grandson's going to come up with is something that you're going to back to this level. So what was it about the Rather Prize idea that Martin came up with that had you get this excited about it and help facilitate it coming into what it is today?
Well, what a good question. First of all, it was Martin's passion. I want to say that. And I wanted to reward that passion and to follow this. And boy, he's really thought about this and really had a good idea. But on a much broader scale, it was, you know, I was raised by people, my mother and father lost them very young, but they really instilled in me this thing. You need to live a life where you contribute. You need to live a life that's about something other than just yourself. But you need to live a life that you can contribute. And I did recognize, here's a chance that in our own wee small way, that perhaps we can contribute. At the time Martin came up with this idea, I already had, I'm not bragging here, but been around the world and seen a few things and been a few places, and knew how important it is for people to believe that they can make a difference and to understand that hearts can inspire other hearts with their fire. But in order to make that really count, you have to be informed, and particularly in our system, our whole system of government depends on an informed, knowledgeable, active citizenship. Mm-hmm. And education is the key to that. If you live the life in ignorance, it's unlikely that you're going to take the journey from ignorance to tolerance, to inclusion, to enlightenment, which is one of the journeys, whether you're talking about LGBTQ or anti-racism. That's the journey. And so you have to have the best education system you can possibly have. Here was a chance for us to make a real effort to contribute, as I say, in a minuscule way. And so that's the reason I had no compulsion, no reluctance at all, and neither did his grandmother, Jean, in throwing ourselves as best we could into this.
Well, I'm excited for the moment and for Armen now, and also for where this will continue to go. Because indeed, the idea, the conception, and why I was sort of honored and excited when your family invited me into this process, I was particularly excited because of the potential for transformative impact. It's one thing to reward a teacher or award a teacher and recognize them as great for the stuff they've done, but then to say, how can we hitch this wagon to the idea of these great ideas spreading? And indeed, we have I have a little chat box to my right where audience questions are streaming in, and many of them are around the idea of expansion, and if there are possibilities to expand this work, or what it would look like, or what it would take to expand the work. And I'll hit us all with that question, but let me start with you, Armen. Do you have thoughts about the capacity or the possibility for this type of programming to be in additional schools?
Absolutely. And I do want to touch on one thing that Dan Rather said. And you mentioned that, you know, people need to learn that it's more than just about themselves. And that's what this program is about. And students do their best work when it's beyond grades, when they have an authentic audience and when they are actually contributing beyond their own grade book. So this is the perfect opportunity to give students the opportunity to do that. And absolutely, there's a reason why I mentioned Navarro High School and East Side earlier. My goal is to have a legal aid clinic at both of those high schools by the year 2023. So I have brought together a collection of amazing people that work at the cross section of law and education. And we've actually started an organization called the Youth Justice Alliance. Go to youthjusticealliance.com. And we're very excited because we believe in this mission as much as y'all do. And we're so excited because we think that we can expand legal services to schools across East Austin. We can give people the support that they need to overcome some of the symptoms of poverty while giving students the chance to get real hands-on experience that will, shoot them ahead when it's coming time to apply to schools, jobs. You want that kid who has that mock trial experience, that kid who has worked in a legal aid clinic, that kid who has conducted intake, who has met with clients and has shown that he or she understands the value of treating people the right way and serving your community. So we're very excited. And I think this is an idea that can easily spread, especially in Austin. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm Austin ISD centered, and I want to make Austin ISD the center of high school legal education. And I think we have the opportunity to do that. But beyond that, I hope we get to the point where we can start dreaming big, statewide, and maybe beyond that.
Thea, do you have anything to add to that part of the conversation?
I don't know how I could top that, but I would just say, I think, part of the key is looking for these small kind of pilot programs and seeing the success and thinking about how we can then translate them somewhere else. I'm sure Armin would agree that it doesn't need to be, a direct replication, but you're trying to really be attuned to what that community needs and those students. And that's something I appreciated from the video so much, hearing how the students are really rooted in their community. And so thinking about how we take these great ideas and adapt them for different communities, I think is really key.
So as I'm going through and looking at audience questions, one of the things that several folks are interested in, and this is really exciting, is the nuts and bolts. So there are some questions about student agency within the program, whether it's sort of prescriptive or how much agency the kids have as they're learning. And there's also questions about administrative support for this sort of programming. So I guess I'll start with Armin again. Could you hit on the idea, did you have to fight this battle to get this done, or was it the administration right with you all along? And then the flip side, how is it for the students in terms of their agency and what they're getting to do?
Sure. So there's a reason why we added the students to the board of directors for the new nonprofit and why they were on the board of directors for the original Eagle Aid nonprofit. This is all about student empowerment. I want to give them the chance to make decisions about which clients we accept, what types of cases that we want to work with. And a lot of people hesitate when we tell them that high school students are going to work on their cases. But we're not handling the most challenging cases in the world, and we don't need to. There are incredibly meaningful cases that high school students are very capable of completing. We've worked on agreed to divorces, name changes, immigration applications, and nobody will come up to you and say, you managed to do an agreed divorce? How did you do it? No, but for that person who is trying to maneuver the legal system, it's a huge help. We have this amazing story of a security guard that works at Aikens High School, and she told me I could share this story. And for a long time, she had been separated from her spouse, and they didn't know how to maneuver the legal system. Even the self-help articles online were challenging to overcome, especially because English was her second language. So we helped her out with her divorce, and I thought that was the main part. But after it was all completed, she brought me a check, and she showed it to me, and I said, thank you. You definitely didn't need to, and I appreciate it. And she said, no, but look at my name. And it showed her new last name. And it was an incredibly meaningful experience for her that I didn't expect. I thought for her, it was a matter of getting that separation legally completed, but she really wanted her name back. These types of cases, high school students can handle, and they can lead the way. And one thing I struggle with is convincing other attorneys that yes, high school students can do it. I think as adults, we want to think that, we've reached a certain maturity or intellectual level that, is unattainable at the high school level. These kids are emotionally intelligent. They are intellectual. They are fully capable. And when it comes to administration, I had the perfect context, from the current administration led by Tina Salazar to even before, and working with my associate principal, Brad Lancaster, and the entire team, they've always been incredibly supportive. They've backed us all along the way. They understand that the ultimate goal is to create a community school. We want to bring people together. We want to serve the community. We want to connect parents and families with our campus, and they've been behind us all along.
So, Mr. Rather, you've at this point watched generations of schooling in Texas, and you also have a global perspective. And what I know of you is that you're paying attention to what's happening, close to the ground through your own family, but also just as a citizen. Do you have thoughts or comparisons in terms of what schooling was like when you were a kid to where we are now? In terms of what Armin was talking about, agency and what kids get to do. Anything encouraging there?
Well, I do think there's quite a bit encouraging. But while I mention the things that are encouraging, that doesn't mean that I don't fully realize that we have a long way to go. So those we've come a very long way since my days, elementary, middle school, and high school. Perhaps the one that stands out the greatest to me is the diversity that's in schools now. Not nearly as much as there should be, not nearly as much as there has to be if we're going to keep our system going and keep it healthy. But compared to what it was when I was in school, keep in mind I went to school here in Texas in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, when there was institutionalized racism. One may want to argue it wasn't as bad as it was in South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi. I'm not having an argument. It was systemic, it was institutionalized. Schools were strictly segregated, as was so much else in society. And I would say in terms of what's happened in the United States, our beloved United States, in my lifetime, I can't think of anything that strikes me as more important than that difference. And that is a huge difference of the diversity. And let me just say, tag on to that, if I may, that one big difference, there are some similarities between the anti-racism demonstrations we've been seeing in the streets for now more than 20 days, and what happened during the 1960s at the climax of the late 50s, early 60s civil rights movement. But the biggest difference in what's happening in the streets, in the 60s, there were non-violent protests, but they were it was overwhelmingly made up of African-American citizens. When you look in the streets today, the diversity compared to what was happening in 1960 is really, I start to say, astonishing. It's really remarkable. And I do think it gives some promise that this, like the best of the civil rights administrations in the 60s, this is not going to just fade into the mists with nothing really to come of it. I think it's a reasonable fear to say, well, we'll go through all of this, all of these protests, all of this energy, all of this making it clear what people want, but in the end, nothing will change. But one of the few times since the 1960s, I think there's a real chance that this time a lot is going to change. It will not be one of those cases where it will just kind of fall off the tabletop in 9 months or a year.
So, Thea, building on what Mr. Rather was talking about in terms of the stickiness of the moment and whether this change will become something that is a new structured reality, what are some of the things that need to be in place for these sorts of programs to be spread and to be operated with fidelity? Is it about money? Is it about the teacher training? Is it about the principals? What are some of the things that have to be there to make it stick?
I'll say yes and to all of those. I think, obviously, funding is always an issue, and ensuring that that funding is spread equitably. I would also say, thinking about this great idea and other great ideas, ensuring that the ideas are spread equitably and can be kind of seen to fruition. Thinking about some of our schools that perhaps really work with our disadvantaged students and feel like they have to do a lot of work on test prep, and that can sometimes crowd out some of these more innovative programs that really speak to both rigor and relevance to the students' lives that we know is really the best way that they learn. And so I think ensuring that there's sort of an equitable access to these creative programs that are really relevant to students' lives is really key. And so I think it's funding. I think certainly teacher training. We know that our economically disadvantaged students are more likely to have a brand new teacher, which, not to say that being a brand new teacher isn't great. I was one once, but certainly in year 3, I was a much better teacher than I was in year 1. And so thinking about these students who perhaps every year have a brand new teacher, there's not a lot of institutional knowledge there about how to create that rigor and relevance. And so I think really getting to the point of getting, ensuring that all new teachers are really ready for that task, but also ensuring that we have some good retention strategies to keep teachers in those classrooms where they're needed the most are really key.
Thank you. So Armen, folks again are dialing deeper and deeper with our questions, which is like a sign of engagement. So I'm pretty excited. Folks want to know a little bit more about the nuts and bolts. So this is a program within a school. These are classes. This is a curriculum. Could you talk a little bit about the program from the standpoint of how it fits within the school?
Sure. So at Aikens High School, we happen to have 6 academies, 6.5, because we have an early college high school as well. And students get to pick their majors. So they can join the Academy of Business Leadership and Legal Enterprises, which is what I'm a part of. And I teach in the criminal justice strand. So within that strand, you can go down a law enforcement path, or you can go down an attorney, legal assistant, paralegal path. So I teach the courses along the attorney, paralegal, legal assistant path. And there's 3 courses: principles of law for freshmen, then court systems, and then for students that apply, they can get into the law internship. That's where I have the Legal Eagles. That's where we have the Eagle Aid Clinic. So before they get to the point where they're actually working on cases, they do have a substantial background in law. And they work on mock trial, they learn the rules of evidence, they handle documents, they handle evidence, they meet with clients. So they're well prepared. What we're looking at in terms of spreading it to new campuses is looking only at that internship component at the end. So what I'm hoping to do is bring clinics to 2 more campuses in Austin ISD, Navarre, and Eastside. And the reason why I want to bring it to these 2 particular campuses is because they have such a high number of students that are proficient in multiple languages, which is something that is usually a negative when it comes to standardized testing. But I've worked for plenty of immigration firms that would be desperate looking for students like those at Eastside, Navarro, Travis, Crockett, Northeast, all of these amazing schools that we have in Austin ISD, where students can speak multiple languages and they know how to handle a school schedule while handling full-time employment. Some of the things that our students accomplish in East Austin are incredible, and we can highlight them. We don't need to look at standardized test scores. Let's celebrate the schools where students can speak multiple languages. Let's celebrate the schools where students can work and learn. We need to highlight the right things so that we can motivate students and encourage them to take that next step. Because there are so many students that are lost before they get to the level of law school. They've never met attorneys before. Well, I'll introduce you to 50. They've never worked on a case before, worked with a paralegal before. Let's make that happen. And East Austin is just the perfect setting for that. We have amazing students, amazing teachers, the best administration. East Austin is where I hope to be because it's where the best schools in Austin are.
So there's richness embedded in your comments and in your description, and there's really sound principles that many of us who are teacher educators would really celebrate. One of the things that I notice is that you are thoroughly, wholeheartedly coming from an asset-based perspective. So we have so many aspects of our schools or our school kids where we cast them at being at deficit for instance, being multilingual, because they're not scoring as high on a standardized test because they're fluent across the board. And we cast kids at a deficit because they don't have time to do homework because they're, holding down a job, et cetera. And in your description, you just seamlessly and convincingly, so I know it's from your heart and experience, recast these quote unquote deficits as what they are, which is potential assets. That's really exciting. And you're going to, as you mentioned these Austin schools, I'm thinking about Houston
and Chavez High and all the schools there. I'm thinking about Dallas. I'm thinking of rural communities. I'm thinking of all of these places where this sort of programming would, quite frankly, at the end of the day, lead to the achievement gains that so many people want to see, even as the kids were so much more substantially enriched. So Thea, when you look across the state, have you seen any similar or different types of creative programs that should be lifted up and that exist in whatever context across the state?
Absolutely. And I think it's such a good point that thinking about marketable skills for the areas is so key. Thinking about speaking other languages as really a marketable skill. I think a lot of us leave and go out into the career field and wish that we had that skill, and yet in our students, it's awful and stifled. So we think, for example, out in Roscoe ISD, really great programs around kind of agriculture and technology around, out in West Texas, windmills and these things that are interesting to students because they're interesting, but also really make them very marketable once they get out into the field. And so I think really being keyed in as educators about what the workforce needs are of our communities. There are certainly many great examples, but I think really looking at that and making sure, again, that the students have the agency to be interested in what they're interested in, and we help them find a way to make that into a marketable career for them.
Armin, do students learn to unpack their skills and see where they can lead? Where do the kids go from here? Or where do the students, where are they likely to go next in terms of post-secondary ed or what have you?
So this year, every single student in the internship is going to a fantastic higher ed institution. They're all going to public schools in Texas, Texas State, UTSA, A&M, UT. So we're very excited. But my goal isn't to get students in, it's about retention. And when we're talking about long-term goals and we have this legal track, it's not about selling the idea of becoming an attorney. I can put on the Marshall movie, I can put on A Time to Kill, and they're sold. They love criminal defense work, they love prosecution work, they all have big dreams. What stepping away and giving another teacher the Aikens role will do is allow me to set long-term goals. What does it look like in 2 years when this kid is halfway through higher ed? How do we get them to law school? How do we help them out with LSAT? How do we help them out with SAT? How do we make sure that they're getting the internships they need? So what we're looking at is creating a long-term support system. We want to create a cohort of students that are interested in becoming paralegals, attorneys, legal assistants, and we want to give them support from the time that they leave high school all the way until they reach their careers. So taking a step back and creating a position where I am serving in more of an administrative role would help out with that. And before I forget, I hope y'all don't mind if I speak out the names of the students. I want to make sure that every Legal Eagle is mentioned in this. I'll take 45 seconds real quick. So Legal Eagles, guys, y'all have been an amazing part of this journey. Y'all are the reason why we won this award, and I want to make sure every single one of your names is heard. So Aricia Amaro, Owen Cardenas, Atali Castro, Eduardo Chavez, Jalen Christian, Mackenzie Cords, Taya Evelith, Jordan Franken, Christian Hernandez, Marissa Hinojosa, Jordan Hodkin, Jose Luna Espinoza, George Macedo, Leslie Macias Lopez, Shauna Mao, Luis Moctezuma, Alizea Ochoa, Josh Pounds, Mason Pounds, Devin Ritter, Joaquin Rivera, Miranda Rodriguez, Unique Shanklin, Colby Tate, Noah Torres, Amory Tovar, Alexander Warkel, and Bosman Zangil. Guys, thank you. I hope you're watching this right now. Congrats on winning. Sorry. What was the question?
No, that's great.
Unpacking.
No, it's funny. I'm a facilitator, moderator, but I have so many thoughts and just some comments that I want to add along the way in terms of like practices. I can tell what a good teacher looks like at this point in my age and my career. And, one of the things that's really big is the ways in which you engage your students and lift your students up and empower your students. And, it's from all of our conversations, because we've talked a couple of times, even before you even knew you won, we had our paths had crossed in different places. And
And I could tell you were there for your students. And so thank you for lifting them up because they deserve it. Questions are coming in that relate to the ways in which you engage community. So for instance, how does the community find out about the legal services? Are other law firms or is the legal community involved? And then finally, are philanthropists or the philanthropic community involved? So when you look out, what's the engagement with community?
Sure. And it looks different in so many ways. I'll give you a couple of examples. So this year, Aikens hosted 2 clinics over the weekend. One of them was the cancer law clinic, and we hosted attorneys that came here to provide end-of-life documents for individuals that are terminally ill with cancer. So they came to our campus, and with the support of our students, they helped prepare 15 trusts, wills, whatever it might be. About 2 months later, the University of Texas Law School provided volunteers from their Aggie Law Society, and we helped write 50 wills for staff and administration. And then we have projects that we do within house at Eagle Aid. One thing that the students were incredibly excited about was a gender marker and name change clinic. And, you know, I was thrilled when the students came up with that idea and they backed it. They were so excited about it. They knew that there are students across Austin ISD who do not identify with the name that they're given or the gender marker on their ID. So they were so excited about this project. They did the research, they got everything ready, and then COVID hits. So how we were going to engage the community in that case was to reach out to every single GSA, Gay Student Alliance, Gay Straight Alliance across Austin ISD and say, hey guys, we want to show you that we support you. We want to show you that we want to help you out. And I thought that was incredibly powerful. I didn't come up with the idea at all. It was the students, and the students got excited about it, and I was thrilled. Because imagine if you're a student in that situation where you don't identify with that name and you're worried about what other students will say. Now the other students are saying, not only do I accept you, but let's get that taken care of. We're going to support you on that journey. And that's how we reached out in that case. So sometimes it'll be outside clinics. Sometimes it'll be us reaching out to our campus and our community. Sometimes it'll be us reaching out to Austin and groups around Austin ISD. And I will say that the legal community has stepped up so many times for us. And the opportunities that we have been provided have been incredible. Our students have gone to continuing legal education courses through the Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers Association. So it's, you know, attorneys with 20 years of experience, 10 years of experience, 50 years of experience, 30 years of experience, and then it's the legal eagles. They have gone to Dell, and they visited with their Dell Legal Diversity Committee, and they hosted us to speak to their legal team. I mean, it's been incredible opportunities. We even went to Jackson Walker, which is the largest Texas-based law firm. And, you know, I was thinking they might show us one person from the team and kind of show us the office and then kick us out. They had the partner for the entire state of Texas. The guy that runs the show for the entire state of Texas was meeting with our high school students. They had 12 attorneys meet with us from different teams. We had different recruiting team members speak with the students. And these guys are in high school. These guys are at a high school that is predominantly low income, where every student gets free or reduced lunch, free lunch at this point, and free breakfast. And these kids are having those experiences. And what we benefit from right now is that this is so unique that everybody gets excited about it. People outside legal community are excited, but talk to an attorney. Tell them the high school students are learning the rules of evidence. Tell them the high school students are working on cases, and their jaws will drop more than a non-attorney, because they wish they had these opportunities. I wish I had this opportunity. These students are going to pass me up by the end of their senior year, if not by the middle of college. So where they're going to be at when they're applying to law schools or for that paralegal gig is a completely different ballpark than most attorneys.
So as we move forward, I love the idea of broadening possibility, right? So one of the questions has to do with what are creative programs elsewhere? And I'll put this question, or I put this kind of part of the conversation to everyone. What are kind of the underpinnings of possibility for this type of programming? And by which I don't mean necessarily legal programming. I don't mean this or that, like the specific programming. But there's something special about what you've done, Armin, that has a resonance with the community and that has people excited. Is there a magic to this? Is there a listening to this? Is there something that underpins the creation of this possibility? And I hope that question isn't too vague. And I'll try to sharpen it if I need to.
You know, I will say that there is a lot of opportunity for creativity in my role. As the only attorney on campus, I've been given some leeway to, you know, make it work the way I wanted to, as long as, you know, I treat the students the right way, they're learning and we're serving. The administration has been so supportive. And I know that not every teacher has that. I don't want to go after standardized testing again, but trust teachers. Teachers are some of the most brilliant people the people that I work with are absolutely brilliant. Science department, English department, social studies, CTE, LOTE, all of them, you know, incredible people. They're absolutely capable. Give them the freedom to actually create a quality education. Don't drive teachers at low income schools to compete with, you know, teachers at high income schools and be told that they're underperforming every single school year. Allow us to serve the communities that we work in. Allow us to create programs that are dedicated to the folks that we serve, our bilingual students, our students that have jobs outside of campus. You know, I think the ultimate way to allow for creative programming is to allow for creative teachers. We have brilliant people on staff. We don't need better teachers. We need more freedom for our teachers. We have the talented people already on staff.
So Thea, you're nodding your head a lot to this. You feel similarly or would add to that?
No, I feel very strongly with it based on my own personal experience for that matter. And I've been looking for an opportunity to make this point. The power of a student being told, you can do that. You know, I dreamed of being a journalist since I was the earliest age I can recall. But it wasn't until my high school newspaper journalism teacher said, Dan, you ate to be a journalist. You can do that. You can do that. And when I got to the small teachers college, which was then Sam Houston State Teachers College in the backwoods, and I say that as a compliment of East Texas. I was lucky enough to meet a gifted teacher who, among the first things, he wanted to know what's your dream, and then he said, you can do that. But I think the idea of what, you know, what Armin's doing, what excites me so much, that many of these students would never think about going into law, whether it actually being an attorney or a paralegal or what have you. But they get this kind of hands-on experience. And whether he says so directly or not, which I suspect he does, they get the message, you know, I could do this. I could do this. I can actually do this. But one should never underestimate the power of a caring teacher telling a student, you can do it. I remember when I graduated from Little Sam Houston, that an assistant journalism professor, a guy I didn't even know very well, said to me, Dan, go, you can take it all the way. He said, he didn't identify it all the way it was. Just saying to me, you have big dreams, go from, you can do it, you can take it all the way. The power of that is not to be underestimated. And one of the things that Armen is doing so successfully is opening new vistas of possibilities to the students and then underscoring the message, and you know what, you can do it.
So dialing back to your story, when you were younger and still in secondary school, what did you have the dream for journalism and there was a teacher there that said you can do it, or did you see something from a teacher and that inspired you for journalism? Just a point of curiosity. No,
it wasn't. I was always, even in elementary school, I was dreaming of being a journalist. So it was that was my polar star. I wanted to be a journalist. It was the teacher saying, well, if that's what you want to do, then they could read my passion, my desire for this, and then understand you can do it. Now, along the way, some of the teachers would say, you can't do it if you keep loafing in my class the way you're doing now. If you want to be a journalist, you've got to start paying more attention in class. There were teachers who did me the good service of saying that as well. Before I forget it, Kevin, there's one thing that if you don't mind, I'd like to ask Armin. And that is that for anybody who's been around mass demonstrations, whether you're a participant or a journalist, you know that the good advice when somebody says, I'm going to demonstrate, I want to take part in this, what should I know? Good advice is always, well, the first thing you should know is you should have the name and number of a very good lawyer if you're going to protest in the streets. I wonder if Armin is free to give that kind of advice to his students.
Uh-oh.
It usually wasn't about protests, but I have told them, reach out to me if you ever get in trouble. But we had that conversation before the protest, so that came up during conversations about prom and many other activities. So we have had that.
Wow. Thea, did you have anything to add? Thea?
I just would add, I think that it's really what we've seen from these two stories are how important it is to have teachers who both have the opportunity to exercise their passions and show, I'm sure your students, Armen, are incredibly inspired by your passion for law, but then also teachers who have the flexibility to say, that's not my passion. You should go do some research. I know you can do it and you can learn more. And to really empower students in that way. I think both of those teachers being able to do both of those things is really important.
So we're kind of coming towards the wrap. So I wanted to just do a round robin of anything that you wanted to add to the conversation. On my screen, it goes left to right from Thea to Dan Rather to Armen. So I'll just proceed that way. Thea, can you wrap for us?
Sure. I just want to say, again, thank you so much for the opportunity. Congratulations, Armen. I think one really great thing about the Rather Prize, at Raise Your Hand Texas, we recently put out a poll and found that while 77% of teachers trust and have confidence in, Texans have trust and have confidence in teachers, 48% only said that they'd want their child to become a teacher. And so I think really being able to lift up these stories of teaching and the incredible profession it is and the incredible impact it can have on students is really something that's a key. And so the Rather Prize, I think, has done that wonderfully in lifting up Armen and his incredible work. So thank you both so much.
Well, thank you very much for that nice comment. One thing that occurs to me, and has occurred to me as we were talking today and hearing Armen talk, is that put it in the context of what's been happening these last few days and weeks. And we touched on the need for ever improving diversity. We almost desperately need more diversity in police departments and in the justice system as a whole, particularly the criminal justice system. There's not enough diversity on the benches of judgeships. We know that. There's not enough diversity in the police departments. That what Armen has started, it seems to me, and he's planted some important seeds, that I'll be disappointed and I'll also be surprised if years from now they don't bear some of the increased diversity that we've got to have in police departments and in judgeships. And I find myself thinking about the anti-racism demonstrations we've been seeing. And part of that is really, folks, it's about two things. This constant striving for equal justice under the law, equal justice under the law, and a reverence for life. When people ask me, what are these demonstrations about? That's one of the answers I give, and I'd be very surprised if some version of that isn't what I'm teaching the students, and I'm complimenting, and I do want to say congratulations on it.
Thank you so much. I just want to close out by sharing one more story. And, I keep going back to the standardized testing thing, and I'm going to do it one more time. And in my application for this prize, I mentioned that 94% of the variation in standardized test scores across our school district can be explained by just understanding if students are economically disadvantaged or not. So 94% of test scores that we base gradeschools.org on, we say that it's accountability. You can predict simply by knowing how many students are economically disadvantaged. That's not accountability. That punishes the teachers that are serving the students that need the most support. It also punishes the students that need the most support. It doesn't help, and it turns it into a competition for who has the students that are most likely to succeed instead of a competition for helping students succeed. And I'm so grateful for the Rather Prize because organizations, competitions, prizes like this highlight what's actually going on at schools instead of looking at standardized test scores that don't tell us anything about the actual service on campuses. And I do want to add that last story. I had a student, and we'll call him Matt because I haven't asked him for permission yet on this story. And he worked 40 to 60 hours a week while a senior in high school. And he was frequently tired in class, but he was a strong English and Spanish speaker. So one day I needed help because we were working on an application for a green card for one of our custodians. And I asked him to help. So he helped translate the document. Eventually the green card was received. So I was, one of the first people I told was him. I said, hey man, you know, that case you helped out on, you know, you helped somebody get a green card. And it was probably our best day as a teacher and student. And there's so many opportunities for things like that. We need to continue to celebrate the skills that are available in more diverse communities, in communities with more minorities. We need to celebrate our English language learners because they have so much value and there are plenty of employment opportunities for them. We need to get them to see that. Thank you.
So I want to thank Thea Ulrich-Lewis, Raise Your Hand, Texas. I want to congratulate you, Armin Salek. And of course, I want to spend a moment to really thank you, Dan Rather. And I think the best and most honest way I can thank you is to thank you for your entire family. Years ago, I hosted Martin on the UT campus when I was hoping that this young Austinite would attend UT. He made a mistake. He went to Rice. We're okay with that. But he's gone on to do wonderful things. In the context of administering the Rather Prize, I've gotten to work with your family, and they are a reflection of all that you've done. I just have heartfelt admiration for you, and now by extension, the generations that have come, I guess, under you. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Kevin Foster. And we're near the end here, and I can spend the rest of the afternoon, and probably should, thanking everybody who's involved here. First of all, I do want to thank our audience. I really appreciate those who are watching the program and who will watch it in place on other platforms later. Again, thanks to Ron Reed and his team with South by Southwest EDU. Over the years, they've just been absolutely stellar for us. You, Dr. Kevin Foster, for not only what you've done today, but bringing the University of Texas and your team and your own talents into helping us is deeply appreciated. Thea Ulrich-Lewis with Raise Your Hand Texas, I appreciate you being here today, Thea. We so admire what Raise Your Hand Texas has done, and also Raise Your Hand Texas, HEB, and the Butt family supported and helped us in many ways. And Ron Oliveira, who handles our public relations and propaganda. And most of all, Armen, congratulations to you. I wish you good luck and Godspeed as you go forward with your work. Thank you. Thank you, and see you next year. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.